It's a colorful foresight where we intuitively connect from within. And it's woo woo time where we connect our woo woo into our mundane living.
Woo woo!
Woo woo woo!
Yay!
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 Okay. So I'm Silvia, Colorful Foresight, and we have two guests. We have Dali coming on first time on this channel. The Wolf Girl Oracle, it's her channel. We have Dance with Angela. And today's topic pretty fun. Going to be about social spectrum, autism, and how that sensitivity works with that. And also, you could call it intuition or just being in tune. Before we go further, do you want to plug in your channel or anything? Wolf Girl Oracle?
Yes, please subscribe to the Wolf Girl Oracle.
You know what? We don't have to complicate things, you know?
Janet's here.
Hi, Janet.
And Dance with Angela? You want to say anything?
Yeah, come and dance with Angela and dance with Angela. And
my channel is all about intuition, colorful foresight, and we're all good. So, how should we start? Angela, you want to start?
I had a question. I know, Silvia, you were trying to foreground us, but maybe we can do a little background on Dali, why we did this live, and then I had a question for you, Silvia, but maybe Dali, you can just explain how it all happened.
Well, I was watching it was a night where you two were on together live, and the subject of autism came up, and Angela, you were talking about how you have people in your life who have autism, and you are interested in the sensitivity that these kids with autism or these people with autism have, and how you're recognizing it. And that really sparked my interest, because I think there's a lot of people who think that autistic people don't have the ability to be connected spiritually or to have a depth of spirituality, because of some of the things that hinder people with autism. But nothing could be further from the truth. I think that people with autism have can have a strong depth of spirituality, even if they don't have the ability to communicate. I think it all has to do with perception, how we perceive the world. My autism is very mild. I have Asperger's syndrome, or it used to be called Asperger's syndrome. Now it's like a name that's like this long. It is so long I don't even remember it. But I have Asperger's, which there are certain things that like happen with me that are, autism is like, you can't say, because I know one white person, I know all the white people in the world.
I know, exactly. Right? Yeah.
Well, it's the exact same thing with autism. When you met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. The spectrum is so broad and includes so much now that I cannot be the face of autism.
Okay? Oh, yeah. You know what?
And I know you're not asking me to. I'm just saying, for everyone out there,
yeah,
I am not the face of autism. I am just the face of me.
I'm going to say the sensitivity, because most of us who are into the channel, we're all about intuition or spirituality.
Yes.
And that's because we have that high sensitivity. Just not anything different. We all have sensitivity. But why does some have more than others? Especially, I would say, with each generation. Especially, I know there's been autism and Asperger and ADHD and highly sensitive people, even before it became like a known thing. But because it's becoming more like that, it probably had to do with, as I was saying behind the scene, the evolution and the vibration. You think Star Trek, remember Spock had that Asperger quality. So it's just that sensitivity. So this had to do with you that watching. So if you're watching this and you're like, oh, this is really nice, but it doesn't really have to do with me. Yes, it does, because we're talking about spectrum.
Right.
Typically, we invited Dali because she was curious. she wanted to have a voice on autism, but
Yes.
really it's about your sensitivity.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, it's about both, I think, because there was a time in my life where I've never been very good at reading people on the surface.
Right.
Facial expressions kind of elude me a lot of time. I'm better now. I'm 55. Okay, so I've had a whole lifetime of being able to sort of study faces, but for like all my younger years up through my teenage years, I really didn't connect with people. I didn't get them. I never knew what to talk about, but I would get feelings. I would get feelings, and I would say to myself, a good example. Okay, something that I remember very clearly when I was in kindergarten. Okay, my kindergarten teacher was mad, mad. But you didn't see it on her face. I felt it. I felt her rage, right? And because I felt her rage, I thought it was me, and I got angry because I couldn't connect. I couldn't make the differentiation between what was coming in from the outside and what was actually me. Okay, so I acted out and I got enraged. I mean, I was acting out her rage.
Yes, that's what a lot of my friends who work with kids on the spectrum say. They're basically like a magnet for the environment, and they pick up and then act out. Or
you guys, my mom keeps calling me over and over. Let me mute myself just for a second. I just want to make sure she's okay. Okay, because she's
okay.
Issues. So I'll be right back. I'm gonna just. How do I do this? I don't even know. Let me just.
Down the bottom, there's a mute button on the left.
Wait.
There it is.
Okay, I'm gonna stay while she's on the phone to her mom. I'm just learning about feelings as well. I'm still like in my mind, or I would see whatever, avoiding feelings. So it's funny that she was not seeing this, not recognizing the expression, but she was feeling. So all these labels we have were probably likely misunderstood. Don't you agree, Angela? What's your feeling on that?
It's the way we use the labels. That's part of that shift from the Piscean to the Aquarian age, or even the 26,000 year shift. We've been using labels to separate us versus coming from our heart and into the feeling where you just telepathically or you empathically feel people. Telepathy is the thoughts, so we can read thoughts. We do it anyway, but we use labels to stop telepathy.
Everybody who's watching this, it applied to you. It applied to you, right? All the sensitivity thing. And it does seem like we're getting more into telepathic level. Like all these tools we use, we're always going to have fun tools, but as evolution continues, what's going to evolve you, because it's going to be the next 10 years. Not going to be, of course, down the line, going to be more, but we're going to be so in tune. And that's why we're seeing a lot of kids who are being labeled, and they have ADHD, and they have autism or Asperger. I mean, I remember 30 years ago, there's more of a stigma, but now there's more information. They're just blending in with us, and we have more sensitivity in including them,
So, Sylvia, you put social spectrums as well. So what did you want to include in that umbrella of social spectrum?
I would say highly sensitive people, which most of us are, especially if you are into spirituality. I think everybody is. You don't even have to be into spirituality. But specifically you guys, because you're all about intuition and things. So highly sensitive people, ADHD, this other thing, autism, Asperger, it's all, because I found it very interesting, Dali, about that. Even though you weren't able to tell the face that much, you were feeling. So that told me so much about when I'm interacting with people with Asperger, not realizing that's why they have to wear like you said, you have to wear the earphone and all the different things.
Yeah, well, I think that I can say in general that all people with autism do have a problem with sensory overload. If there's too many sounds, smells, sights, all happening at one time, it's very difficult people who are neurotypical can just kind of filter certain things out. Like if you're in a crowded room of people and you're having a conversation, like at a bar, like if you go to a bar and the music is playing and people are talking loud because they're drinking, you probably don't have any problem being able to focus on the person that you're talking to and be able to hear them and understand what they're saying, right? I can't do that. I can't do that at all. I get so bewildered that I can't handle it. I get that at grocery stores. I get that at Walmart. I get that at sporting events. Headphones helps to keep that down, either playing just music in regular headphones or wearing my actual noise canceling headphones.
I'm going to say a lot of people suffer from anxiety, and they probably just have sensitivity overload, like sensory overload.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about that spectrum. So what comes to your mind, Angela, as you listen to Dali?
With the senses, it's really interesting because I work with the body and dance. So for me in a bar, having to verbalize over music gives me anxiety, and also certain vibrations in the music. So high, I mean, it's apparent that a lot of women are very overly sensitive in general to high decibel frequencies, like is very overstimulating to women, and bass sounds in general because of our biology. But for me, I discovered in certain electronic music, I can't actually be in the space, and certain decibels. And our society has become more and more, going back to what you say, Silvia, about not feeling our feelings, we're using electronic music to kind of shock our bodies and avoid our feelings. And the highly sensitive people on the spectrum and other different brain functions, they're forcing us collectively to face the feelings in very uncomfortable ways sometimes, but in very practical ways. I have to say that most of my friends on the spectrum were really good educators about this, explaining their internal world. And that's the other thing I wanted Dali to bring up for us too, that transition from childhood where everything was overwhelming and you just started acting it out. I have friends like that who are actors. I had an actor friend who, as a child actor, would go into a location and start to perform unconsciously. He couldn't stop it. And that was because he was picking up all the unexpressed emotion.
Yes, I get that. I totally get that.
And you know what? Before we go further, I just want to bring up Shanita. Can I ask in the audience?
Hi, Shanita.
I'm going to ask, do you see that sensitivity overload and intuitive, like after practicing a person being in tune? And she said yes, and she quickly removed herself. That's what you both do as well?
Yeah, because you're picking up so much. It's not just the sensory overload, it's the emotional overload. Yeah. Now, if I'm like at a baseball game or a basketball game and everybody is having a great time and our team is winning and everybody's cheering and everybody's excited, I pick up on a completely different feeling than if we're losing. And a lot of times if we're losing, I got to go. I have to go because I'm picking up. You wouldn't believe how many people go to rage when their team isn't winning, right? So I gotta pick up and go. I have to get out of there. I've experienced it at the casino because I do responsible gambling. I'm not somebody who's there every week, but I like to go and play roulette or play cards at the casino. And if the table is doing great or that everything's going fine, I don't pick up a lot of ambient rage or ambient worry until I walk past the slot machines. When I walk past the slot machines, I can tell exactly who is not winning and who is having an awful, awful time and should probably just go home. In fact, I've told people maybe you should just go home. You know, if you're feeling like that, maybe you should just go home. And they're just like,
well, yeah, because
you know,
you know what? I can relate to Shanita because she's saying when in public, I sit close to an exit so I can make a quiet exit if needed. You know, my sister and I, we have anxiety, and I think we're just very sensitive. I mean, this is really, that's why we just say spectrum. People don't realize everything is energy. So I'm so glad that you sharing about, you know, the Asperger or the autism version of it. You're very much like us. You're just more hypersensitive.
Well, I think there's some hypersensitivity to it. I also think, though, that, you know, you were asking about like where I diverged from being trapped in autism and being able to open up and develop with spirituality. And that happened. That started actually with practicing Zen Buddhism. Going through, you know, Zen is not a noun, it's a verb. Okay. It is very much an action and participation type discipline. And getting to know my mind, like learning to recognize it was in my 30s, I was 35 years old when I discovered, oh, I am not my mind. I am the soul that encompasses this body, and my mind is my central processing unit for all of the stimulus that's coming into me. It is the gate, it is the guard gate that like stops things, you know, that this is where my fight or flight center is. This is where my pain, you know, where my body understands what's going on with pain in my body. It's collecting that data so that I know that there's a problem, right? And that is what the mind's job is. The mind's job is there to think. It is not there to tell you when it starts going off on a tangent, when it goes into monkey mind and you start going into what if world, and you start snowballing into anxiety or snowballing into anger or rage, you know, you do have the ability to stop that. And it just starts with saying, I am not my mind, stop, you know? And once I got that figured out, and I started to realize, oh, all of these things that I'm feeling are not necessarily coming from me. That is where the change began and where the intuitiveness started to surface. I can't read people on the surface, but I can feel people. You know, it's empathy and it's intuition. I have the ability to take the information that's coming in from somebody else and forecast out via spirit what might happen next, right? Doesn't mean that I'm 100% accurate. It doesn't mean that I always understand the visuals that I get, because I do get visual imagery. And I didn't realize that not everybody gets the visual imagery. I didn't realize that there was all these different clairs, you know? Mm-hmm. And the more I learn about that, the more I learn about what my own abilities are and what other people's abilities are and how this information is coming to me and what I need to do with it. You know, that's been my journey. And my autism, I feel like, is my superpower, you know, because I can hyper focus. You know, when I connect with something, I am so connected that nobody else can say anything around me. I don't hear them. I am focused on what I'm focusing in on. When I do readings, I am hyper focused.
Can you explain for us what happens in the middle of the reading? Like how do the other things blank out and how you get your visions and images? How does that happen?
I really don't have a choice, because I just lose focus. I just lose complete, and not focus in the meaning a mental connection, I lose literally my ability to see. You know, like I don't see what's in front of me. I only see the images that are there. So sometimes they make perfect sense. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're very ambiguous, and I have to sort of just feels to come in. Sometimes I smell stuff. I don't hear voices though. I don't hear words being said to me. Every now and then something will pop up and I'm like, what was that? What was that? You know, I get mostly just feelings. It's not,
I do feel that we probably have a little bit of everything. It's just that some people have strong points. Maybe some people more clairaudient, some more feelers and all that. But I'm learning a lot, Dali, in regard. Like I would never known, you know, but
if you can see what my feet are doing right now, you know.
Like, no, I could be like smiling. You'd be like, is she upset? But then you feel my energy. You're like, oh, okay, she's feeling good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit different with the computer than it is when you're face to face. I am not so connected that I necessarily get a pickup on what you're feeling in the moment. I can only get what spirit gives me if I try to do a reading for you, or we start engaging in a conversation that spirit cues me in on something, you know.
Well, you know what? I'm curious, being that you're a student of spirituality and you know you utilize oracle cards and things like that, especially for people who are watching this. Maybe they're not into oracles or tarot, but they tap in differently. How has it helped you? Like I noticed, like sometimes because of my feeling, I'm not maybe tapped into it. I have to be more in my mind. The oracle cards will help me to realize what I'm feeling.
Right. Yeah, actually, that's a good point, because now again with spirituality, when you met one spiritual person, you met one spiritual person, because everybody's got their own connection, you know. Just like, you know, if you believe in God doesn't talk to everybody in the exact same way. You know, he's going to talk to you, or she's going to talk to you the way that they feel like you're going to understand it the best. Right. That's why I don't like throw out religions, you know, and, you know, some people in our community can be a little anti-Christian. I'm not. God's talking to them, and this is where they are on their path. So let them be.
No, but I agree with you, because spirituality, that extreme to people in the spiritual community and how they use it. So you're right. And then some people are so into nature. They may not be the most spiritual. There's that one swimmer, I forgot her name, but she's an Olympic swimmer and she's an atheist. And they're like, well, how do you, like, you're in the ocean for hours. Like, how are you connecting? She goes, I just connect with the water. I connect with the sun. I was like, oh.
Yeah, there's still even, I don't think that atheists are necessarily anti-spiritual necessarily. I think that their spiritual connectivity is human. You know, it's human, and that's where they're at on their path right now. And we don't know what they signed up for when they came into this world, right? We don't know. So I don't knock anybody down for what they believe at all, ever, because I feel like your path is your path, and you are where you're at. You're exactly where you're supposed to be right now on your path. You know, you can't force yourself into a deeper spirituality or force yourself into a deeper understanding of the divine or how you connect with everything. That has to happen gradual. It's an evolution of you, you know, of you. And when I say you, I mean your soul, not your physical body, you know. And that's going to be like that for me was the biggest part of my transformation out of being stuck in my head and stuck in my world. It was having that aha moment that helped me understand how I connect to everything, and that my soul is eternal and my soul is who I am. You know, when I am hearing the voices in my head, like you were talking, Silvia, about anxiety. Now, when your anxiety is really kicking in, I'm sure that there is a voice in your head saying all kinds of crazy stuff, right? You're doing a lot of what if, and you're just snowballing yourself into a deeper state of anxiety. When you really fully, now, some of that might be chemical too, right? You might have something chemical happening in your brain, and that's something that you need to talk to your doctor about. You need to just kind of weigh out the pros and cons of either going on medication or trying to find a more holistic way to deal with anxiety, which is what I try to do. I try not to take, I was on antidepressants for years and I thought it dulled me, And when I was a little kid, because I was misdiagnosed as having ADHD when I had autism, they put me on Ritalin, which turned me into a crazy zombie person for like 3 weeks. And my mom was like, I don't even know who this kid is anymore. I'm taking her off of this stuff. And so she weaned me off of the Ritalin. And although my behavior still wasn't great, she still felt like she was getting a bright and intelligent child. And I'm not saying that it's wrong to give kids Ritalin. That's not the discussion I'm trying to make here, but it wasn't right for me, right? But if you're like stuck in your head, Silvia, you got to take a step back and go, okay, stop, just stop, and get curious about what is triggering all these things inside of you to have happen, and just take a curious look at it. You're observing it. You're aware that it's happening. You're not trying to stifle it. You're not trying to knock it down. You're just aware, right? You're aware that it's happening. Your soul is aware that this is happening, but it's like you're looking from the outside in, not allowing that voice to be who you are. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Dali, if I can go in a little bit more detail, so you said around 35, you discovered Zen as a practice.
Yes.
And then it sounds like you discovered this soul or eternal self.
Mm-hmm.
Was that in a meditation? How did you describe for us that process? What happened?
This is exactly how it happened. I was sitting down with my Zen master, and we did these things called kongans, or a koan, if you know Japanese Zen. And basically, your Zen master gives you a question, and your answer to that question is an action. It's not words. Okay. So I was sitting down. It was my first time sitting down with a Zen master, and I didn't realize how that worked. So when he asked me my question and I gave him my answer, he picked up this thing called it's a stick. It's a stick. It's a flat, long stick. And he smacked me on the shoulder with it.
Okay.
And I just went,
he's Sicilian, really.
I just went, and he just smiled at me, and he motioned for me to go back. So I went back and I sat down, and I'm like, oh, I get it. So when I went in, I forget what the kongan was, but it was about it was something about closing the blinds. So when he asked me the question, and I got up, I bowed to him, I went over, I closed the blinds, I came back down, bowed again, sat back down. He just went. And so that's when I realized that, when you say to yourself, who am I? You're saying, who is asking the question, right? And that opened me up. That opened me up to this thought that, hey, there is something eternal in here. Something that isn't a part of this 3D world, although I wasn't, saying that at the time, but that's essentially what it is. Something inside of me that is not of this 3D world. There is a soul that is encompassing this skin bag that is eternal and wise and has a constant connection to the divine. And that just that concept changed my whole life. And I started speaking. I started speaking in a way that I had never spoke before. I found a new confidence because I realized, hey, okay, maybe I don't get jokes when people tell them. Maybe I don't, maybe I'll never be able to to be like a neurotypical individual, but I am important because I'm part of me is divine. I'm divine, right? So if I'm connected that way to the divine, I don't have to be afraid about anything. I'm just going to be confident. And I'm going to talk about what I know. And I'm going to just do the best that I can. And if people like me, great. And if they don't, it's okay. You know, I didn't feel like I had to, you know, for a lot of people with autism, they mask. That's how they get through life. You know, they mimic things that they've seen other people do. And I do that. I do that. A lot of my personality is made up from things I found from many different people. But that's how they get through life. They mask, they chameleon, they listen, they don't engage. They're not the people who walk into a room and start asking people questions and trying to get them to talk about life, you know. But after that, after I had that moment, I just started talking with people. And another thing that really helped was my love of Star Wars. Because I discovered that just about everybody loves Star Wars. There's people here and there that don't love Star Wars, but everybody knows what Star Wars is, right? So if there's an awkward silence, I can get people talking about Star Wars. And then I'm in my element.
Have a default conversation.
Yes, my default conversation always revolves around Star Wars or Disney films, or because I'm crazy about Disney. I think a lot of people on the spectrum are crazy.
You know what? I do feel like the reason why there seemed to be a rise of it's because of the vibration we're heading into. That's why it's more like people in tune with sci-fi and things like that.
And computers.
Want to say that Shanita was replying back to you, Dali, the medication issue happened to many families. Fortunately, there are genetic tests you can take to determine what medication will work best.
That's right.
You know what? Right now, I'm taking this Calm Magnesium.
Magnesium is great. It helps you poop.
Yeah.
If you're not on it, everybody, you should go on magnesium. You'll be so happy that you did.
You know what? I think that's in regard to you, right, Shanita? I think she's telling you, Dali. You glow, girl.
Oh, that's Shanita is a very special friend to me. You know, she is a deeply spiritual person, and I think she picked up on my autism quicker than a lot of people normally do, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, well, maybe because I see you on video. It's not. It's a little different than when you talk one-on-one. But I know there's spectrum. So, Angela, anything else come to your mind from listening to Dali?
Yeah, I was thinking about, like, if someone is on the spectrum watching this, or other people, when they're spending a lifetime masking, and like for you, this soul connection seemed to give you a sense of self that helped you speak and help not worry about what other people think. But I know quite a few people on the spectrum that spend a lot of years, and I know some younger people as well, but I know people who got diagnosed when they were young, but they're in their 30s, let's say. And I know people who got diagnosed later, but they might have spent years, like I'm talking 10, 20, 30 years, with this constant anxiety behavior. And being a highly sensitive person, I identified with it. That's why,
Yeah, I do have anxiety. I don't want to make it sound like I don't. I do get anxiety, you know. I just have developed personal methods for recognizing when it's happening and catching it before it goes into full-blown anxiety, you know. Right. I have learned about myself what to feel, or what I'm feeling, and how to associate what I'm feeling with what's happening and put a stop to it. It took longer for me to recognize when it was other people's emotions that were affecting me.
Because that's what, maybe you can help us with that, because I've got a few people who I know that are on the spectrum, and they're basically a magnet.
Yes.
And that, for some reason, I was like that anyway. I'm a clairkinesthetic from birth.
Okay.
I've had pre-birth memory of picking up. So it was in my DNA, not just genetics of my brain, but it was in my karma, let's say that, to pick up. So I've had to learn as a healer how to protect myself, and a similar journey with knowing that eternal self and managing anxiety. But this thing about picking up other people's stuff, like a vacuum cleaner, or maybe we can put a different metaphor, like a lighthouse.
No, that's a perfect metaphor, because I people don't know that they're doing it, right? People have no idea that they're putting these. Nobody knows, I don't think, unless they're spiritual and they've put some thought into this, that the energies that they're putting out, this frequency, like Silvia was talking about, this energy that's being put out is something that can be received. There is the transceiver, and then there's the transmitter, right?
Okay.
So I end up acting like this transceiver, where I just pick it up. Now, it's not like if somebody down the street is having a fight with their spouse, it's not like I'm picking up that energy. It's not, I don't feel it that far away. But if the collective is freaking out about something, like a good example would be 9/11, the feels that I felt for that entire week, from 9/11 on, for a good 7 to 10 days, the anxiety that I felt coming in, and the worry and the panic and the uncontrollable crying and all this stuff that happened to me during that time, the large majority of that had nothing to do with me, had nothing to do with what I was feeling. I was just picking up on the collective, and I had no idea what to do with that.
You know what? I think that's so important. And this is, I think, even from psychology to spirituality, religion, the idea is it this my energy or is it somebody else? Okay. We've heard that all across the board. But before we continue, let's talk a little bit about Star Wars again. Nancy was replying back to you when you brought that up. When I saw Star Wars the first time in 1977, I was amazed at the spirituality I found therein. Story.
Yes.
And
yes. That was my first touch on the Force. Oh, wait, the Force. Do I have this ability? Is this what's happening to me? Am I like a Jedi? And I still think I'm a Jedi. I have a lightsaber up on the wall there. I am a Jedi. And I feel like that's maybe that's what humans are going to be like someday. Maybe someday there will be that so much connectivity that we'll be able to influence the molecules around us, be able to lift things with just our minds and stuff like that. Maybe that's where we're going. I don't know. I'm not there. I can't do that. But
no, I'm going to say, and I think Angela was picking this up. I think the rise of awareness of autism, of the awareness spectrum of, I guess, Asperger or being highly sensitive. I think we're learning from you guys versus the other way around. Like Angela said earlier. It's both, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be able to have the connections with people if I wasn't around people who could connect with people superficially. You know what I mean? Like I had to learn how to interact with people. Like at work, you're not having deep spiritual connections with people. You're having these on the surface interpersonal relationships. And, I've always been in leadership roles. So I've had people who've worked for me, and I've had to learn how to separate myself enough from them to keep them just employees and not my buddies. You know what I mean? So navigating through all that as somebody with autism was difficult, but doable, but I could tell when somebody was lying to me. Somebody would call in sick, and I'd be like, let me guess, you got an eye problem. You just can't see coming in today. Because I could tell before they even started that they were totally bullshitting me and wanting to go to the beach or whatever. But, other than that, people would always be like, how do you know? I don't know.
No, that there's superpower, lie detector.
Yes, I'm
The lie detector.
Yes.
Superpower.
Yeah, so that's one thing in humans that I'm pretty good at picking up on. I can tell when somebody is
I know. I'm just feeling better because I was so sensitive, and I would make myself feel bad about it. So I can imagine somebody who had even more sensitivity. I mean, I don't know if more or more, a different variation of sensitivity. I like that better. Like if now, thank God they have more awareness and they talk about it in the school and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But this sensitivity is so important. Also, this is why.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't think everybody's going to go into spirituality per se, but this idea of, I always said everybody's intuitive. Maybe some people work at being psychic and all that, and that's a different level, but we all have that. So that stigma alone should be out. And you could see it like now on YouTube, so many spiritual videos. And sometimes you see people make it like they're more special. Now we're all special and we all have something. We all have to feel a little special. But I'm like, wait till everybody realize every single person whether the gut feeling,
yes,
like you said, the different clairs, and all that, it's all related. But so this sensitivity awareness, and then also what autistic ADHD and the spectrum of it, bringing this idea about not only be sensitive and not label them as something wrong, but then to see their superpower. So I could see the difference from when we used to hear about autism 30 years ago. It's like such a bad thing. Now we're seeing the superpower that they have.
Yeah, my brothers, I have two younger brothers. They're twins, and they also are on the spectrum. They're a little bit worse off than I am. They have a hard time communicating. They do communicate to a certain degree,
right?
But it's kind of a detached communication a lot of times. But my brother David has begun memorizing the Bible, and he has memorized Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, and Romans.
Wow.
And he competes against people who do the same thing.
In the spectrum or outside? Both?
It's both. It's both. In the group that my brother is in, I don't know that there's anybody else on the spectrum. But for Christmas, for Christmas, he stood in front of the church and he recited everything from Luke that has to do with like the birth of Jesus. And I was just like, because that's something I don't have. I do not have that gift. That's the gift that he has. So him being stuck in himself stopped happening when he started doing this, because he started interacting with people and he made a connection via what he was doing and was able to start communicating with people effectively, like actually having conversations. Now, if you sat down and you said, hey, Dave, tell me what you think about, the state of politics in America right now, there's no way he'd be able to answer that question. There's no way he could come up with that. But if you said, hey, let's talk about the Bible, what are you learning? He could go on and on and on about what he's learning, because he's made that connection, right? Now, does he have spiritual intuitiveness? Does he have any kind of clairvoyance? Yes, he does. He and my brother can talk to each other without opening their mouths.
Yeah, I've seen that quite a bit. Telepathy,
crazy,
and nonverbal. Yeah,
they just look at each other and they kind of make facial expressions, and then they go off and they do something together, and they don't have to talk to each other. Yeah. And I've said to them, are you guys communicating in your mind? And they just stare at me like, and I'm like, I don't know if they are, but it sure looks like they are.
It's not a very well discussed thing, but chimpanzees actually have extraordinary. I do dance, so I've had to understand nonverbal communication, and chimpanzees, which are our ancestors, have extraordinary amounts of nonverbals. but they're not only facial, and there is some facial expressions. So there's a whole spectrum about facial expression that's still to be understood in humanity. We do a lot of imprinting from the mother and the child and eye contact, but there are this whole other range of communications which can be in the proprioception, like your aura, where you just feel in the aura. I've experienced this in dance. I've had people dancing behind me and I know what they're doing. How is that possible?
Right.
I felt people.
You felt that energy around them, the aura. Yeah, I understand the aura because I see a faint aura around people, not so much on the computer when I'm talking to people. When I'm face to face with people, I do see colors around them, not big giant bands of color, just little hints of color. And I can feel when people are around me, even if I don't know that they're there. I can tell when somebody's walked up behind me, or I can tell when I'm passing a room that has a person in it,
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I love that.
And I think that everyone has that. That is nothing special. I think everyone has that. But I think a lot of times in childhood, these connections that we have, these inherent spiritual connections that we have, get tamped down.
Yeah.
Either by a forced religion or a just overbearing parents who want their kids to be actively involved in everything that they wish that they would have done as children. That kids get this stuff tamped out of them. I know that I did. I know that my connection that I probably had as a small child got sort of tamped out. Not that my mom had any kind of ill intention, but she just wanted me to. The child psychiatrist that I saw, who put me on Ritalin, told my mom, you got to keep her very, very active. Her mind can't sit still. You need to get her involved in music. You need to get her involved in art. You need to get her involved in sports. You need to get her involved in all these different things and keep her active constantly. And then that way she'll sleep and she'll settle down, because she'll be getting this energy out of her, because they said that I have ADHD, right? So my mom tried that. She got me involved in everything that she could possibly think of. I hardly had any time to myself, and that tamped out anything that would have been there, I think.
Oh.
So when the kids are showing, I think more and more people are understanding that kids do have this kind of connection to spirit, that they do have this built-in intuition. And parents are becoming more and more, well, tell me what you would like to do.
It's all about awareness. I agree, because you guys know I do it woo-woo even for me. And I didn't expect to do so many of it. I was starting it and I was going to do it once a month. But before I knew it, it was like 2-3 a month. And I'm like, I'm going to run out of miracles. I'm going to run out of this and that. And I realized I have so many stories, because I had to come up with new stories. Mm-hmm. And I was like, it goes back to the childhood. I'm like, oh my God, there's so many things I had that I forgot. And we are suppressed. So it's just not, if it's not your environment to talk about these things, it should become, like another whatever. So you're tapping in with that. The warrior girl, before we go further, she said she heard during a channeling of Metatron that they were all telepathic.
I'm a Metatron girl.
Oh, and then Dali said you need to start practicing with them. It'll enhance your gift, but she's already on it. So
yeah, I'm
you picked
that up. Metatron. That is my angel. Metatron is my angel, and I work with Metatron a lot. I'm a Norse pagan, so I work with a lot of pagan gods, but Metatron is one of the angels that has reached out to me. So I work with Metatron. It's very cool. And he was human. He was Enoch when he was here on this earth, when he walked on this earth. So he has that human experience. He knows what it's like to go through the humanity of things, a lot like Jesus, Mm-hmm. Walk the earth, understands it, gets it, right? Gets the human experience. So both are very good to work with.
So I wanted to talk about masking, because a lot of people on the spectrum are masters at masking. And this is what I've learned recently about masking, that neurotypicals do masking. implicitly, because that's how we're raised as from childhood.
Yes.
Mummy does something, or daddy, and then we copy. So we mask. We all suppress our true self because we're pleasing our adults, or we're copying the brothers and sisters around us, or whoever around us, or the TV around us, or the social media around us that we're exposed to. But people on the autism spectrum have this extra job when they incarnate in the body to learn about masking to be fit in. And this for me is the next stage with the Z people, or the next generation. What are we up to now? Like, whatever generation, that's what I'm hearing now with that one, because they're super, if you see them on social media, they're super aware about masking, where all of my friends who are older weren't as aware. They just started doing it so that they would be accepted in employment.
Right.
And the Z's are still being told you have to mask to get a job, right? So then I started contemplating and went, so maybe actually they're here to show us that neurotypicals mask. Why are we masking? And to get out of the way of that masking to please. So we get
masking to please and masking to fit in is something that people on the spectrum definitely do. But you're right. I never thought about it before, but neurotypical people do it as well when they are just trying to put their best foot forward in a particular situation, right?
We lie all the time. We lie all the time to fit in. We're not authentic.
Yes.
We're BS artists, masters. And that's really pertinent for me right now. And so some of the best conversations.
No, but you know what? It's not like a negative thing. It's liberating. Like, oh my God, we're all just masking. Not automatically.
We have forgotten our passions. Like when we're passionate about things when we're kids, you know, like for me it was bugs. I love turning over every rock and looking at the bugs and catching frogs, and you know, really I loved creatures. I didn't hurt them at all. I just wanted to see them, and I wanted to know everything about them. And you know, that was my hyper focus as a kid, was animals, learning everything that I possibly could about animals. And I remember as a little girl, my mom saying, you know, girls don't do that. No, girls don't play in the mud. And, you know, girls wear dresses. Girls, you know, she like really pushed the gender roles on me. And I wanted to please my mom because I love my mom. And, you know, so I did all the things that she wanted me to do. I played clarinet. I didn't want to play clarinet. I wanted to play drums. So eventually I was just like, I got to a point when I was in my senior year of high school and I went, you know, F this. What am I doing? I don't even know who I am. You know, I have no idea who I am. Not in those words. It was all in my head, but that's what I was thinking. And I just started, I rebelled hard, and I was very angry for a long time. And I recognize now that a lot of that anger was actually because I was hanging out with people who were angry. The people who accepted me were the outsiders, right? They were the outside group, not the inside group. And they were all very angry. And so I was picking up on that, and I was getting angry, and I stayed angry a long time. You know, the whole reason I went and got into Zen was because an ex-girlfriend of mine was like, Dali, what are you doing? You know, why are you always so angry? You know, you need to go and meditate. You need to go and learn how to meditate so you can release some of this anger, you know? And you know, I loved her. So I was like, okay, you know, I would have done anything for her. Right. So I'm like, okay, I'll go, you know, what do you suggest? What do you think I should do? And she's like, well, you know, you've got all these Japanese things around your house. Why don't you like go and try Zen, you know? And I'm like, okay, let's try Zen. You know, my grandpa, like, I live in the house that my grandma and grandpa built. You know, I bought this house from them. So I still have a lot of their stuff in here, and they have like my grandpa was really, really into Japanese stuff. He was really into Feng Shui, and he was really into Zen, and he was a pastor. So anyway, so I was like, yeah, okay, well, let's try Zen. Let's try that. And I went and I was hooked immediately. I went to a Zen, they had a Zen 101 class. I went to the Zen 101 class. I meditated for 10 minutes and I felt such a release of things. Like I could feel so much tension just leaving my body. And I think part of it was just I wasn't with the people who were so angry. I was with people who were full of peace. And,
wow.
And their peace affected me. So when we're out there and we're talking about shining our lights as spiritual people, we really do have an effect on people, because people who don't know that they're sensitive, who are going through rage issues, anxiety issues, all these other things, they might be picking up other people's stuff and not realizing it. But when we come in and we're talking about love, and we're talking about acceptance, and we're talking about all these spiritual connectivity, our divinity, and we're talking to people about this, we are making a difference whether we know it or not. We're planting seeds that might help them later,
That's really
important.
Shanita said entrainment. She's responding to what you were saying.
Entrainment? Oh, okay.
Like being around people who emanate peace, or those qualities of love, is so important. That brings me to what I see with a lot of my friends who have kids on the spectrum and ADHD. Sometimes it's both now. A lot of the next generation are being born with autism and ADHD, which is actually gone up, especially in Australia. And I think that is a factor of the environment. Not just the physical environment, but the psychological and the spiritual environment.
Yes.
So I see parents freaking out. Like they often do this thing, either overprotecting their kids on the spectrum or under, or having anxiety. Because I know some parents that are, maybe they're on the spectrum and they have kids on the spectrum, so they go into a lot of anxiety behavior, which is not necessarily overprotecting, but just not putting the right vibe out for the kid to grow up.
Right. It causes a deep sense of fear, because that's what I experienced with my parents. My parents were really afraid for Dave, Doug, and I. And the older that I got, the more I tried to make friends and try to involve myself in social situations, the more fear my mom had for me about what might happen to me.
Yeah.
And then I would feel that fear and be afraid myself, not realizing that it was coming from the outside in. So I get what you're saying. If you're overprotective as a parent of somebody who's on the spectrum, or you're underprotective, a lot of times kids will end up feeling like they've been abandoned.
Okay.
Like they're having to figure it all out on their own. And the world is a confusing, very stimulating place, and there's nobody there to be the guiding light. Well, that's not good. But trying to keep your kid in a bubble and doing everything for them instead of allowing them to explore their own individuality, well, that's not good either. There has to be a gentle mix, and it's different from child to child, right? So there is no easy answer for how to help kids develop a spirituality when they're children. I would just say let kids be kids, but give them boundaries. Give them good, solid boundaries, and enforce those boundaries.
That's great. I'm going to say, to end this video, what came to mind, stuff happened, the environment happened, the changes, whether it's good or positive, but people adapt to it. And this idea of, because there's more of that sensitivity, the social we are adapting around it because we learn from them as well. You learn from us.
I appreciate that too. I really, really appreciate that. There's so much information out there now, because when I was a child, there was nothing.
I know. I'm going to say, I see the change from 30 years. Like, I remember when it used to hear about it in the 80s, it's like the end of the world. Like, oh my God, my kids have, and then now it's like, you know, you have a lot of them are in careers that are awesome, like engineers and all that. They make good money, you know, not good money, but at least something that it, but, you know, going back to, because we have to adapt, because now you have a whole new generation like that. It might be also the collective of spirituality, like where we're going evolution. A lot of like what we see on sci-fi, or even like what people predict of like ETs or anything like that, very like how the kids are and how we're adapting. You understand? Like telepathic energy. By the way, Warrior Girl, she clarified earlier, she left since. She was talking about, Dali, you need to start practicing with them. It'll enhance your gift. It wasn't Metatron. She was talking about your brother.
Oh, yeah. I want to, but I also don't know how to approach it yet.
Yeah.
I have a very, I love my brothers dearly, and I take part in as much as I can with them. But we don't connect the way that a brother and sister normally would in a neurotypical setting, you know? So, I try to get them to engage with me, and it's very, very difficult. You know, I only engage with my brother Doug, like where he actually comes to me and wants to converse with me about anything, is when he finds somebody in the obituaries that we know that died, or he's learned something new about the Titanic, because his hyper focus is the Titanic, because we had a relative on the Titanic. So anytime he finds anything about that relative or anything new about the Titanic, he likes to tell me about that. But most of the time it's obituaries, I know. But hey, at least that we have a connection, right? So I'm not sure how I can practice with them. I might, maybe after the fateful day after my mom passes. Not that I want that to happen anytime soon, but when it does, and I have to take a more active role in their life to help them because they really can't live on their own, I might try to teach them meditation, because meditation has been the bridge for me in so many ways between the 3D and the 5D spiritual experience. You know.
No, but you were saying your brother, that what other interests he had besides reading?
He's a Star Wars nut too, so that's another thing that we're both Star Wars nuts. So we'll talk about Star Wars, you know, when we can. But he will never come to me and talk to me about Star Wars.
Oh.
I have to go to him and say, "Hey, did you see that? You know, this new series started, or you know, have you watched it yet? Or what do you think about this?" And I don't get much more than, you know, 1 or 2 word answers from him about that kind of stuff. So I think I could talk them through meditation. But engaging is hard. You know, the communication is hard. I can feel what they're feeling though. Like I know when they're upset. But I don't have the same kind of like ability that they have together where they can talk to each other.
Yeah. No, it reminds me of Angela with her niece.
I use telepathy. I use telepathy with the non-communicative people on the spectrum. I use telepathy all the time.
I would like to learn that.
it's you already do it. You just send a thought, but you might have a little bit more like, well, because I'm Sicilian, we didn't need to learn telepathy. We were grown up with our parents. Like they just had to look, or we could see them, their nostrils flaring, and we'd be like, oh no. So we all do it. We're just not, like you said earlier, we're not conscious of our awareness and our thoughts and how they affect others. But it's actually having a thought form and intending that to be heard by the person without speaking it. So I learned that with my family growing up, because they spoke Italian or Sicilian and I didn't understand anything. So I was just picking up thoughts and energies all the time, and thought forms and emotions. Mm-hmm. And then with my niece, we do a lot about what their interests are, but I found telepathy and sometimes music, sometimes other media that are not like a movie or that they might like. But yeah, telepathy is really, really quite easy. And with my niece, she started picking up my thoughts when she was 4. She would speak some of my thoughts, and that shocked me. And that made me learn, okay, they don't need verbal language. They can hear it. They can hear my thoughts. So, okay, I can reply back.
I'm going to have to try that. I'm going to have to try that with them. I don't know that I ever have actively tried to send a thought to them and see if they would respond. But the neatest thing is my mom got him a cell phone now. Okay. They share a cell phone. So my brother David uses it more than Doug, but David texts me all the time now. Oh. And the things that he says are so profound. And I'm just like, who is this guy? I'm learning. My brothers are 51 years old. I am like learning more about them and their personality through their texts than I ever did. That's why I'm saying, like, when autism people learn how to communicate, what comes out is just deep and phenomenal. Yeah, there's so much deep critical and analytical thinking happening there. It's mind-blowing, you know.
That's why Mr. Spock was so sexy. I know, like Trekkies. I'm a Trekkie more than Star Wars. I appreciate.
I love Star Trek too. I love both.
That obsession with Leonard Nimoy from childhood is just a bit strange. Like, why are you so attracted?
They're connecting about Star Trek.
I had a close friend in the 80s, and we never completed sentences because we had a telepathic connection. I have that with my partner, Chrissy. Her and I complete each other's sentences all the time. So I understand how that connection can happen, you know, and I know what she's thinking and she knows what I'm thinking all the time. And some of that is just, we have a deep vested interest in each other, you know, but some of it is just completely spiritual telepathic. It really is. We do that.
It's beautiful.
All right, Sharon's like, I'm a Trekkie too.
So yeah. I'm watching through The Next Generation right now. This is my third trip through The Next Generation. I just keep revolving through all the different series and watch them all, binge them all the way through, and then start all over again, because I always pick up on something new or some. It's like as I get older, I'm like catching things that I didn't catch, like back in the 90s, late, you know, from 86 until the early 90s when Star Trek The Next Generation was first on. I was in my late teens, early 20s when that happened. And now watching it through as a grown up, I'm picking up on things I did not pick up on then, you know. Yeah. And even the original series too. The original series now is hysterical to watch. I mean, it's super entertaining now. William Shatner is a god.
Kind of nice to know that. Okay.
Why is
I should put you three up. I'm leaving. Goodbye.
Sorry, we've gone into Shatner. Once you bring up Shatner, the show's over, Silvia. You're gone.
I think we should do a live. All of you Trekkies. I'll just have to listen.
The spirituality of Star Trek, or the spirituality of Star Wars.
You know what? That would be a good live. You guys
I think so. I think we'd get a lot of more views.
And Vice Strawberry. I mean, she would go on with you. Okay.
Okay.
I know her and I are supposed to do a show together at some point here.
Great. We've got a new live. I love it.
I got the title. You figured it out right there.
Yeah, Star Trek. Why it matters.
Star Trek. There you go.
Everything I learned about life, I learned from Star Trek.
Yeah. So I will watch that guy. So you three get together and do that title. I have a telepathic connection with my ex-husband too. I think something, and within 5 seconds, he start talking about what I was thinking. Wow.
Yeah, that's weird. Or did you ever have it where You're like, maybe not so much now with cell phones, but back in the day when we still used landlines, I would think my mom's going to call and ring, ring. And I think women have that connection with women. I think that when you have a deep spiritual connection with another, when females do that, I'm not saying that males don't, but I think it's different with males. But I think that women just have an intuitiveness. We have an intuitiveness built into us that recognizes each other. You know what I mean? Our souls recognize each other's souls. I don't know. Does that make sense?
No, but Sharon, she was talking about her ex-husband. So you're like, you're talking about your girlfriend. So it's like a different level. But by the way, she said, both of you, Dance with Angela and Dali, should drop an email.
Drop an email is good. Okay. Oh, did you cry when Uhura died? When Nichelle Nichols died? I was so sad. Oh my God.
I felt like it was the end of an era. I felt like, oh.
She was a hero to me.
Yeah.
I mean, to be able to look, I know for Black women, she was really a hero, you know, because they not only were seeing a female like themselves up on the bridge, but they were seeing, you know, somebody who looked like them. But for me, it was like, there is a Starfleet officer that is female on the bridge of the Enterprise, you know, and then she went on to be the spokeswoman for NASA for the rest of her life, you know, recruiting people into NASA. You know, she was an amazing woman. So
isn't it funny, like how she had an acting gig and it ended up being her life, you know?
Yeah.
That was the power of Trek. Trek was able to actually make people think things were real. And Roddenberry actually went to channelers. Gene Roddenberry went to channelers. So a lot of his material was from the Pleiadians, from a channeler.
I believe that. I believe that because there's such the message. The message, the neat thing that I like about Star Trek is you have all these different alien races, and all these different alien races really represent us. All the differences that we have here on this earth, in this terrarium that we live in, right? This closed terrarium. But I feel like he could see beyond the terrarium. He could see what else was out there and was communicating with what else is out there, who wants us to know that they want to have that same kind of relationship with us, but they're not going to until we get our shit together here.
Mm-hmm.
Until we recognize the humanity in each other, they're not going to bother. They'll drop us little things here and there, you know, and check our progress and maybe help us along. I mean, we went from horse and buggy to the space shuttle in less than 100 years, for crying out loud. That doesn't just happen, you know, but
yeah, but you know what?
I don't feel like they're going to like fully connect with us.
You can say like
war until we stop killing each other, you know.
I'm going to say, you know, there's a lot of writers or whatever, they're like a channeler. I don't even have to be a big fan, but I lived long enough to see like a variety of them. Remember in Star Trek, they would have the phone and they would have this like iPad thing. It was showing.
Yes.
So obviously
way ahead of its time. Yes. They had cell phones. Their communicators are like our smartwatches, you know. Yeah.
Shanita, your friend's saying later. Nice to meet you.
Oh, Shanita, I love you. I love you, girl.
You.
She's amazing, you guys. She's going to be on my show on Tuesday morning if you guys are around.
Okay.
Shania's going to be on. She is a sound healer.
Oh, awesome.
That's what she does for a living. She heals people with sound. And she's a counselor, and she's brilliant and beautiful, and I just love her. So you guys got to come see her.
Just to let you guys know, tomorrow at 11:30 Eastern, 11:30 a.m. I'm going to be on Stanya. Excuse me, I have a cold.
Yes, Sonia.
It's Stanya. I always say J, but it's Stanya. Rain Lee.
Yes.
So go on her channel and check it out. So let's see. One of her favorite episodes was a counselor, Troy, became pregnant and had a child.
Yes, that was a heart-wrenching episode because she got pregnant by an alien. Basically, the alien entered her as an embryo. And it was a fast progression into You know, the child was like young, you know, like 13 or maybe less, and then it died. You know, basically leaving the body and going back out into the universe. The whole idea was this alien wanted to experience life as a human being, to be able to connect and be a part of that. And you know, I think a lot of people who are on the spectrum feel that way. I did for a long time, that I was an alien, you know, looking into something that I was trying so desperately to understand and be able to connect with. And you know, it was so hard. When you stop trying, that's when it starts to fall into place. You know, I was trying to force myself into being neurotypical, and I had to embrace myself as who I am and love myself for who I am before I could develop the confidence to actually be able to connect with people.
I'm glad. That's one thing great about getting wiser, as we all are.
That's right.
We want to take that wisdom, you know?
Yes, I earned every one of these gray hairs.
But this is where we're going to end, because this is where you three, you and Sharon and Angela, are going to have to do a whole video on this topic.
The spiritualism of Star Trek. I would love that. Yeah.
I try to do my Deanna Troi impersonation. I have an outfit. I can't fit into it, but yeah.
Look at that. My daughter at age 2 announced one day that she had come to Earth from another planet. That's another video right there too. My God. Okay. So thank you for coming on. It was so great. We're going to definitely collab again. We'll pick another topic. And please let us know, all of us, you know, comment below. Let us know what you got from this. It'd be great.
Yeah, please do. I'm sorry that we didn't follow the comments. I mean, Silvia, you did a great job trying to keep up with everybody, but I apologize if we weren't interacting as much as like I normally do. But this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. So you got me going. Blah, 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 blah.
I got so much from it. Honestly, I got so much from it.
It was great.
It was very informative, which we wanted, and fun, and we're playful. So take care, everybody. Bye.
Yeah, take care. Thanks for coming, everyone. Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.